hint on electronics for automobiles. A common question that I see a lot on the internet is, what's that little thing on the floor that looks like this? And that is what's referred to as a dimmer switch. And you push on it like that with your foot to change the brightness of your headlight. So we used to call that high and low beam that's incorporated in this. This is called a seal beam headlight that we used back in the days of when I grew up and drove in the 60s. And you needed two settings. You needed a low beam to be driving down the road for an oncoming car, and you needed the high beam, which was brighter so you could see down the road, because it was very dark then. We didn't have a lot of street lights, and you needed a good light to be able to see where you were going. So you'd be constantly pushing on this if you were in traffic to give yourself high and low beam. We used to flash these lights at each other if we were stuck on high beam and didn't realize it. And I think on another video I showed, you'll see that on the older cars there was a red light in the dash that meant you had high beams on. So how does all this work? Well, simply, the easiest way to start is with the connector. This was a connector that you'd find on your car. In the event you had to change this bulb out, you'd have to unplug it. And you can see that it adapts real simply to the back of this bulb, like that. And we'll leave that right there where it is. Then from your headlight switch there would be a connector that goes here, but from the headlight switch, this connector right here was the 12 volts that came in from the headlight switch. So let's just fab this up right quick to see how it works. So now we've got a ground wire on this one right here. And we have two wires that connect to the headlight. And I believe this black wire is the ground connector, so I'm going to hook my ground wire up to it. And I've got two wires right here, both of which are going to go to the dimmer switch. So we're going to take the red wire and hook it up right here. And then we're going to catch the other red wire that I have here when I can find it. And I'm going to hook it up to one terminal on the dimmer switch, and I'm going to hook the other terminal of the green wire on the dimmer switch, and then the green wire to the last wire to the headlight. Now basically what we've done here is we've provided a ground for the headlight right here, and we have hooked this dimmer switch up to be the source of power. So from this green wire we're going into this green wire, which goes into the headlight switch, and the red wire goes to this red wire that goes to the other side of the headlight. Now, if I apply power here, we got a headlight. Now we need to know if we have a high or a low. So basically, if you'll be able to observe this light as I'm doing this, I can put power to that. That would be the terminal coming off the headlight switch. I'm going to give it power, and then I'm going to push the headlight switch. Can you see how that changes? So now we've gone from high beam to low beam by simply pushing on the dimmer switch on the floor. Now, how does that help? Well, for one thing, this connection right here was always where you put your foot, and a lot of times this terminal would not make a good connection. So if you're wanting to find a problem, the first thing you want to do is turn your headlights on, remove the terminal from there, and check this one with the headlights on to make sure there's power. If there's power there, then check to see if there's power coming out of either one of these two terminals as you depress this switch, because all it does is switch from this to this and this to this, back and forth. If there's power not coming out of this, then the dimmer switch is bad. If there's power not coming out of this, then it's something to do with the headlight switch. And I think we've covered that in another video, but you go back to the headlight switch to find out the problem with this. If both of these are working and you've got power coming out as you switch it, then you would want to come back and remove the terminal from the back. They do fit tight. And you would want to check to see if there's power coming in and a good ground on one of these to make sure that everything's working properly. Here, if that's all working and you got a good ground, then you probably got a bad headlight switch or a bad headlight, and simply replace that. And a lot of times that'll happen. It'll work on one side, not the other. So you got a high beam, no low beam. It's just a headlight. So just put a new headlight in there. That should fix it. If it doesn't work on either one, it's probably the dimmer switch, and it's probably the connector to the dimmer switch. These dimmer switches don't fail that much. but the fact that somebody's foot's always riding right beside it seems to bend and mess up the connector here. And I think you'll find that that's probably 90% of the time the problem when your headlights don't work. Hey, I hope that's helpful. I'm Barry Wilson with Wilson Auto Repair. Go to my website, got a lot of more electrical stuff there to try to help you figure out how to fix your car without having to go to a garage. Also teach you some electrical tips and some stuff that maybe you'll be able to use down the road on working on your car.